What's up, everybody? Welcome to another week. This is Live Life Wrestling Show. Sincere Hogan, Mike Marlin on the other line. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Well, I'm doing good, man. I saw a great concert last week, towards the end of last week. Killswitch Engage.
Oh, yeah. There you talking.
Awesome. Yeah, they were great. And what's interesting is that there were four opening up bands. One of them was good, From Ashes to New. They're kind of a rap rock band similar to Linkin Park, Hollywood Undead, that kind of band. They were really good. Great stage energy. Then the three bands that came on after, they didn't suck, but they weren't that great.
It was just time to go to the restroom and go buy the beer and everything else.
Fortunately, they have a lot of couches to lounge out of at the Hard Rock Cafe because I would have hated to have to stand up through all of that. But anyway, after the first couple songs of each of these bands, you're like, it's not that great. Then when Killswitch came on, it's the whole energy changed. The second they came up on stage, you could tell, okay, this is a professional band that's been doing it for a while with a very tightly knit. And the second they launched into their first song, the whole place just went crazy, and it was awesome. And it's very inspirational to see bands that kill it like that.
Oh, yeah, they always bring it, man.
They're really good. They're really good. But it also makes me think that these bands that were opening it up, you should have brought a lot more than you did, because this is a complete missed opportunity.
Exactly, especially when you open up for someone like that, and you know what kind of fan base they're going to bring. Like, dude, this is your time to shine.
Yeah, and some of the bands didn't even make sense. I was like, why would Killswitch Engage fans even care to hear some of these bands? It's just some of these bills that these promoters put together. They're trying to bring all these diverse people together. That doesn't work.
Man.
You know, put together three bands that everyone likes, and guess what? Everyone's going to come out to that. Rather than, you don't want people to look at the bill and go, oh, I want to see them, but I don't want to sit through all of that.
Right.
Or I don't want to just show up for this. Anyway, we could go on that forever. But Killswitch Engage were awesome, so that was a great show. Anyone who is a big fan of aggressive music, if they're coming through your town, check them out. They're really good. They have a new record coming out in March. A couple new tracks have been released, and they're great. So you're going to love that.
Oh, yeah.
Also, our friend Prince Bell has started a new channel for all of you Star Wars dorks.
Oh, hey, man. I'm one of those Star Wars dorks, man.
You're a serious Star Wars dork. You're going to like this. Prince Bell comes out with his Jedi robe and everything. He already has 10,000 subscribers.
I know it wasn't like a few months. He's already got like 10,000 subscribers.
I actually just went to check it out this morning, and I ended up watching 5 clips in a row. You know, he does a really good job. So
Let me say this, man. I have to say this. There are a lot of like fan type YouTube channels for a lot of movies that I really like, but I can't really, as far as the movies that I like, I can't really get into those YouTube channels because half the time you have these nerds or these fans who just can't put two sentences together, and it drives me crazy. And so they're kind of all over the place. It's not very well structured, and you're pretty much saying like, dude, what are you even talking about? Did we even watch the same movie? I don't even know what you're talking about right now. But here's what I love about his channel, man. I mean, it's well put together, well produced, and the way he's putting together the content of the topics, he stays on topic throughout the entire thing. He doesn't go all over the place. Yeah. And even if you're not a Star Wars fan or a nerd or whatever, you're listening to this guy. He's like, wow, because he's very engaging with it. And it's like, so it's almost like you tuned in and subscribed to a channel from an actual Jedi, because you kind of find yourself being mind tricked into. You just kind of listen to Prince's words like, oh yeah, okay. And I'm thinking like, I've never watched those 3D the animation series of Star Wars at all. But now he's got me all interested now, because like the Clone Wars and all that I saw, I said, I don't want to see these bootleg looking cartoons, man. I actually want to see real people. But now, after listening to Prince and these couple of these episodes, I'm like, okay, you know what? I might start checking this out now. I mean, I can't call myself a true Star Wars fan if I haven't at least watched some of these things. So, props to Prince, man. So you guys should definitely go check it out. I'm trying to remember. I want to make sure I can give the exact channel.
Urban Acolyte.
Yes.
That's ACOLYTE, just Urban Acolyte. You put that in.
Acolyte, like X-Men, So for all you other nerds out there, you know how to spell Acolyte. Or Star Wars fan.
Spell Star Wars, it would probably come up.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're a Star Wars fan, you're really going to like what he's doing. And it's cool that he launched into it. He said he drew some inspiration from our show to pull the trigger and get it going. And he's doing a great job. And like you said, what I like about what he does is he stays on point. So if he has a 5-minute clip, he's not all over the place. It's on it's on that theme. Sometimes when you see titles, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then you click on it, and they don't even discuss the title. So it's so random and it's all over the place. But he's very much on point.
Oh, yeah.
So he's doing a great job. Also, we have a lot of our listeners that are doing a great job using that coupon code LLA to get 10% off some great products and nutrition supplements. We have Vashti Permal, Larry Long, Miguel Salinas, John Roberts, David Johnson, Donald May, Timothy Nevins, Gary Levin, Matthew Fultz, Kenneth Javes, Ben Marsh, and Ian McClesh. They're all using that coupon code LLA to get 10% off the best nutrition supplements around. Restorezyme to help you recover from your workouts. Recovery Oil will give you a great night of sleep. And the testosterone booster, of course, to increase your sex drive, your mood, your training focus, and just get way better results for the time you're putting in. Also, my new supplement, it's an adrenal energy, real energy developer. It's called RED. That stands for Real Energy Dominator. That's coming out at the end of the month. I actually just had the label sent over to the manufacturing plant yesterday. So everything is bottled, capped, ready to go. They just need the labels. So I'm looking at late next week. So this is basically the end of February. And that has rhodiola, maca, ashwagandha, and shilajit in it. And so it's a non-stimulant, natural energy inducer. It's incredible stuff. And who doesn't need more real energy? And most people wake up, you're tired, because we're all working hard. We're all trying to get things done. So this is something that's going to support your adrenals, support real energy reserves, and get you off all of those stimulants. So check that out next week.
Good, man. Pretty cool. And also some of our folks who are staying on point as well, man, by supporting us each and every month through Patreon. We want to give them a shout on that VIP list as well. You know, shouts out to Jonas Soderson, also to Peter Malazuski, Robert Russell, John Wetzork, Anthony Rodriguez, who I think is a longtime client of yours, if I remember you saying his name quite a few times. Yeah. Simon Knight, I believe another one that's on your VIP list. Corbin Thomas, Ben Buchanan, Steve Sampson, Hayden Stein, Mark Hannington, Tom Suttle, and Jim Beaumont, a longtime kettlebell sport athlete right there, man. So I know our guest today is very familiar with Jim as well. So, shouts out to all you guys and ladies who support us each and every month on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/LLA podcast. We truly appreciate that, man. And all right, let's get this ball rolling.
Corbin's a cool guy that not only is he a supporter of the show, he always shares episodes. He's always on Twitter lighting it up, so we really appreciate that, man. That's another thing you can do to support us is leave us those reviews and share the episode, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use.
Yep, we appreciate it. Cool.
All right, let's get to our guest. He's a good friend of ours. He's been on the show many times. He's a fan favorite. We've got Scott Shetler, author of Eat Plants, Lift Iron. How you doing, Scott?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good to have you back, man. So you were over at Westside recently, right? You and your wife went over to check out Louie Simmons' gym.
Actually, it was just me. I went with one of in August of last year. I went with a swimmer that I'm training. He's trying to make the Canadian Olympic team right now. He's the number one 50-meter freestyle swimmer in Canada, and we went up to work with Lou back in August, and then actually that's when I had sent you that picture of Matt Brown's that war wagon wheelbarrow device that he developed, and then I just went back a couple weeks ago with some of the power lifters that I train. So we went up and did some more training up there, but yeah, it was awesome, man.
Very cool. You pick up some new tips?
Yeah, man. It's that guy's amazing. I mean, it's one just being there is insane because it's everybody talks how it's the strongest gym on the planet and this, that, and the other, but being in there, man, you just feel like you're in the strongest gym on the planet. Right. Some big, strong dudes walking around, and Lou is just so open and just willing to work with anybody, man. If you go and you just give a shit, that he'll work with anybody that wants to make plan a visit up there. And I've been a fan of his methods for a while, and I use a lot of his methods in my training with the athletes and the lifters and such that I train. And it was really cool just to have him kind of look at what we were doing and just kind of solidify that, we're on the right track, but also to, he's got this like expert eye, man. He can just look at you and tell you how to do something differently, what you need to, do to make this lift better, what accessory movements you need to build, what it is you're trying to work. And I mean, the guy's mind is just it works like nonstop, It's pretty freaking awesome to be around somebody at that level.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of his way before I got into the business. In fact, he was one of the inspirations I had. Him and Charles Poliquin and a few of Brooks Kubik, Pavel Tsatsouline, these were all people I was really interested in their information that inspired me to get on the path. Louie, does Louie use resistance bands on the deadlift? Yeah,
he does. He's got a platform that he designed. It's like a frame that goes around a deadlift platform, and it's got some bars on it that you can attach various resistance to. And we were actually, when we were just up there a couple weeks ago, we did a dynamic effort lower body workout. So after box squats, we did speed pulls against doubled mini bands, which gives you I think it's about 100 pounds of resistance at the base, and then an extra 220 at the lockout. So, for people that like me, I usually miss my deadlift up around my knees and stuff like that. So having that extra tension come on right at the lockout is fantastic, because it teaches you really to drive your hips through,
right,
and get the weight. And then also it's a fantastic grip developer. Another way that we do it is where we quadruple a set of mini bands in our power rack. We've got one of those power racks that has the elevated, like the sumo base, and we quadruple mini bands around that, and we pull off either the number 1, 2, or 3 pin after speed squats, and that that's a ton of tension real fast, like right at the top. I think that's another 220 pounds or so, depending on if you're using minis, or obviously if you use heavier bands, you get more tension.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic for your lockout, fantastic for your grip strength. Like I've got a very light lifter. He's total elite at 114, 123, and we're working on his 132 class elite. The guy's really, really strong. He's got a 9.91 times body weight total.
Wow.
Total 1100 at 111 pounds body weight.
111 pounds. How tall is this guy?
God.
He's about 4'10".
Okay.
He's
Okay.
That would have been really impressive if he's 5'10" or something.
No, man, he's 4'10", but he's got small hands. So he's a good deadlifter. I mean, he's pulled 455 in training.
Wow.
And
that's
pulled
crazy.
made 440 in a meet, but he loses it. It's his grip. His grip just opens up. So so those banded drills have really been helping him out too. So
I like the whole band stuff, the whole forced acceleration. Do you find that you have less sticking points after you've been using bands for a while on deadlifts, where the weight just goes from the floor to lockout much smoother?
Absolutely. It teaches you to accelerate, and so sometimes people slam accommodating resistance because they're like, well, it only works for geared lifters, because gear usually gives you support at the bottom of the lift, but then at the top of the lift, it's more the lifter, and that's not the case. I mean, you're not trying to overload where your gear doesn't help you out. You're trying to oppose the strength curve. You want that extra tension where you're more mechanically strong. It's the same with chains. Bands give you that, like you said, Mike, it's an active resistance. Chains are not, they're not trying to pull you back down, but they definitely accommodate the resistance much like the weight releasers did.
Yeah.
But, you're just, it does what Nautilus machines failed to do.
Right.
Nautilus machines are harder where you're mechanically weaker, and they give out where you're mechanically stronger, So it's the bands do such a better job at accommodating the strength curve.
I think Louie said something about combining bands with machines, though, for bodybuilders, because then you would get the best of all worlds. I remember it was a while ago. It might have been on Superhuman Radio, and I always found that interesting. So he's not someone who thinks machines are just a waste of time to be avoided. I think people get too focused on either or, right? Like, all machines suck.
Right.
Just use free weights. And of course free weights should be the majority of your training, but there is a place for machines.
Exactly.
They can be good supplementary tools.
He's got a ton of machines in the gym, and like a lot of ones that he's developing, like his new inverse curl is insane, man. It's like it'll replace the glute ham raise. I mean, it's I've never felt anything like it on my hamstrings.
Wow.
And then he's got this, for people that this is going to be, he's already launched it, so I feel okay talking about it. But when we were up there in August, he hadn't really launched this line yet, but it's called his Static Overcome by Dynamic line, and it's 3 machines. One is his that pendulum swing that he has, that plyo swing. It's a plyo swing. He's got like a Smith machine looking apparatus, and God, I can't think of what the other machine that he has this for was, but basically it's an air pressure type of machine. Where
Nick Curson uses that stuff. That's what exactly. I thought of immediately as you were bringing it up. That stuff looks extremely interesting to me.
It's awesome because you can set like 2,000 pounds of pressure on the bar, so you're doing a true isometric, and then at the flip of a button, you could set that load to be 30% of your deadlift, and then bam, you go from an isometric right to whatever percentage you're trying to do. So it negates the need for like 2 power racks where you're doing an isometric out of one, then you run over and you pull your, when like he said, Verkhoshansky and a lot of the old Soviet coaches and stuff were really into that static overcome biodynamic type of exercise. He's got it all down to one machine, and it's awesome. But it's basically a Smith machine. So I'd imagine the internet jockeys are going to have something to say about that. So.
Well, I mean, if you look at Rafael Dos Anjos training with Nick Curzon, he's a fucking beast, man. That guy's got some serious power. It's going to be really
interesting with Conor, man. Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. It's hard to bet against Conor because he's so good at backing up everything he says he's going to do. You start believing it. I mean, like right now, it's like, why would you bet against him? Because everything he said he was going to do, he did.
Precisely.
Look at Dos Anjos, it's like, I don't know how you're going to beat that guy. I mean, yeah, you know how he could beat him just like he beat Aldo. But if someone like Dos Anjos gets his hands on you and he takes you to the ground, I don't know. If he can keep Conor on the ground, I don't know what he's going to do.
I mean, I don't know how Conor's ground game is. I mean, his striking is next level, man.
It didn't look very good against Mendez.
Yeah, it didn't.
His ground game.
But then again, maybe you got to wonder that he also saw the same thing. Like, okay, it didn't look good against Mendez. Let me work on this now.
Well, did you guys watch this past season, The Ultimate Fighter, where he was coaching against Faber?
I saw some of it.
Yeah.
Dude, I wasn't I didn't know much about him going in. I just thought he was kind of a loudmouth and kind of a blowhard or whatever. I didn't really pay much attention.
True.
To him.
That too. So you were right on that.
Like you said, the dude can back it up, man. And I get a little sick of the attitude sometimes. Like I know sometimes
it's too much, man. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's like,
so I never paid much. Yeah, I never paid much attention. But after watching that season, man, I mean, he really won me over. He's a phenomenal. He goes in on day one and says, "Well, I'm not here to coach these guys. If you're coming to the show at this point, you need coaching. You're not at the level you need to be at."
Right.
And I thought it was this macho kind of blowhard stuff. But when he started working with the guys, he's a great fucking coach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so methodical in the way, his training without pads and just working on, slow motion targeting and stuff like that. I mean, it goes back to, if you can't do it slow.
Can't do it slow, you can't do it fast.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, man. Yeah. He's a great coach. It seems like just an awesome, all around guy. I mean,
people that have met him one-on-one say he's really cool. So he's just a very smart marketer.
But the thing is,
did the same thing.
He's no different than, the things we're saying about him now are the same thing people said 40 and 50 years ago about Muhammad Ali. They felt about him the exact same way. He still had that same belief in himself. He was a good marketer as well. But the thing is, whatever he said he was going to do, he went in there and did it. And then after that, it's just, you really couldn't say anything else after that. It's like, okay. And now this dude is known as the greatest. He's known as the greatest of all time. And the same people that, that thought he got on their nerves, these are the people now that revel and praise him left and right and say there'll never be another Muhammad Ali. So, it just gets to that point because there's always this thing about, this is like an episode Mike and I can always do about being humble. And people always try to say, you need to stay humble. And I was just reading something and watching a video of that. I think it was like, I can't even remember now. I had posted it on Facebook. And people always somebody like, pretty much, when people tell you, you need to remain humble or be, you need to have some type of humility, it's almost like they're trying to make you smaller than what you are in order to kind of bring you down to their level because they haven't reached their full potential and they don't have that belief system in themselves. So it makes them very uncomfortable when you speak like they're like, oh, he's just bragging. It's like, it's not bragging if you back it up. Okay, that's the one thing about it.
No, you're right, Sincere, because you're right, because often that's said in the tone of, oh, you need to dial it back, or you really think you can make that happen? It's not like they're trying to tell you to be humble and you're making all this stuff happen.
Right.
They're trying to put a roadblock into your process.
Right. It's like, how dare you actually back up what you say? Who does that?
Right. Well, apparently Conor does, man. That's awesome, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's hard to bet against him, against Dos Anjos.
Sure.
But one thing I've noticed about Dos Anjos is he's not letting Conor get into his head.
No.
It's just not visible. Like that press conference, Conor's talking all this smack. Dos Anjos is like, all right, we'll see. Just go ahead and keep talking, man. You're not going to let me talk, so just go ahead and keep talking. We'll see what happens.
I just hope it's a good fight, man.
Yeah, I do too, man.
Me
really
too.
Good.
I hope it's not another 15-second.
Yeah, actually,
15-second win.
I actually hope it goes like the distance, man. Just
that would be,
let it be an all-out war, so we can see pretty much everything that they have to offer as far as their skill set. Where everything gets tested, the ground game, their striking, just the gamesmanship and just the whole mental thing. Like I really want that one to go all 5 rounds. So if that ends in 15 seconds, I think I'll be done, man. I'm like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I lived through this era before in the 80s with Mike Tyson. I'm not going through this again, man.
It's just too anticlimactic.
Exactly.
On either side when someone just wins Like the whole Aldo thing is like he just ran into Conor's punch.
Like
he just ran into his fist. It's like he was so eager to get out there. It's like boom, there goes your fist right in my face. Oh,
I'm just gonna stick my hand out and watch you run into it. Okay.
Yeah, he tagged him, or he ran into it. But I mean, when you watch the slow mo, and you watch Conor's movement and placement, man, that was beautiful.
He was a matador, man. He was a matador.
Extremely precise.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, with
that wasn't just like a fluke, like Conor just happened to hit him right. It's like, no, that was very precise strike at the right time.
It's like you're doing exactly what I told you to do, and I'd be damned. So now I got to back up my promise.
Yeah, it wasn't good planning on all those parts to charge him. I mean, obviously.
No.
Not when he tells you that's what you're gonna do. Come on, man.
That's what Conor's good though. Conor's so good at getting at the mental warfare. He has you beat on that front, right? So he's really good at just agitating the other person to the point where they're not fighting the way they normally do because they're so emotionally invested now. Where I don't think Rafael is going to make that mistake, from what I can see.
Nah.
That's what's going to make it interesting. And the strategy to beat Conor is there. I think Eddie Alvarez said that. He's like, look, the strategy to beat him is there. Like basically the way that Eddie beats Anthony Pettis. It's not exciting to watch, but that kind of strategy would work against someone like Conor from what I can see, where you basically just don't give him any space. You keep him up against the fence. You keep him on his back. You don't let him use those strikes.
Right. So like it'll be very interesting. So just don't want anybody getting injured before then. Let's not go through all that again. That's another thing that kind of sucks for a lot of these fights that kind of get hyped up. Somebody gets injured and then it's put off, and getting kind of tired of that, man.
That's what I was about to say too. It was like, fight is not till March. Let's just hope it goes through. Yeah, we lost you for a second there, Scott. I said
Skype shut down. I got a message saying that Skype decided to shut down. But yeah, I was just saying, isn't it the card that Holman Tate are going to be on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's interesting too. Everyone, I think Holly Holm is going to win, but I don't think it's just going to be a cakewalk for her.
No, I think Misha's got some pretty. I think her striking's pretty. I mean, I'm no,
I think her. Yeah, I'm no expert either. I'm just a fan. But I think Misha's strength is that her wrestling is very good and she's very tenacious.
But then on the flip side of that, I've been watching some of these clips with Jon Jones and Holly Holm rolling, and doing jiu-jitsu. I'm like, if she's rolling with this dude, and she's handling her own with him. Yeah, and so I'm looking at that. Then I think about Misha and who's at her camp. I'm like, Holly's in a lion's den of beasts, man. And no one gives anyone. It's like not saying that anyone would do the same in Misha's camp, but it's just the track record of the folks that are inside. Jackson Winklejohn. It's just like you're being thrown amongst the wolves and the lions there, man. You can't be anything but, no matter who you are. Female, male, whatever. You got to bring that. You got to go beyond the A game with some of those guys.
Yeah, Holly's such a great athlete in and of herself, and then when you combine that with the training camp,
and that strength is ridiculous, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she was mug whomping Ronda, like like sit down, little girl, don't get up.
What do you think about all the powerlifting Jon is doing, Scott? Have you seen any of these Jon Jones clips where he's deadlifting 600 pounds and squatting 500? It's pretty cool.
I've seen some of the clips, and he's definitely he's very strong, man. And
out of nowhere too. It's like he wasn't even lifting weights that much previously. Then all of a sudden, a couple of months later, he's deadlifting 600 pounds. I remember he put up a clip deadlifting 450, and I was like, it looked like he had a hard time with that. And then like maybe 2 months later, he's deadlifting 600 pounds.
Yeah, it's like
I was like, wow, this guy is such a natural athlete.
But the genetics are great in that family, though, man.
Yeah,
his brothers as well. So.
But that's the I know we talked about it before and stuff. We don't really need to get into it, but that really is like the missing link when it comes to the preparation for a lot of these fighters. I mean, they're just they're just conditioned to death, and it's always cardio and circuits and this, that, and the other, and none of them really spend any time. Yeah, I mean, God, look what happened to Matt Brown after he started doing all strength training, and Frank Mir, when he started training out there with your guy,
Mark
in Vegas.
Mark Philippe,
I mean, you need to cover all your bases, and that means training. Your absolute strength, your speed strength, your explosive power. I mean, you got to. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be totally developed all the way around?
Yeah,
I'm not saying neglect anything. Like your cardio. Obviously, you need some cardiovascular conditioning, but I mean, God, how much of that are they getting through their sparring and their other training too?
Right. I mean, just look at someone like Anthony Johnson, how much power he has, and what an edge that gives him. He just, I mean, if you make it out of the first round with Anthony, you have a chance. But that's a big if.
And I think that right there alludes to why I think so many are not trying to go in and really work on their strength and conditioning game, because there's still that old adage of, I don't want to get too muscular and too strong because I'll gas out in my cardio. But I think with the proper conditioning, the proper programming, there's a way to still fuse all those things together.
Sure.
And, the thing is, if you're worried about that, then you're worried about the wrong thing. You should be worrying about, I need to get a better strength and conditioning coach. If that's the issue. So you're focused on the wrong thing. Don't worry about getting stronger. Worry about somebody programming it right. So therefore you can get stronger and not lose your skill set in the other arenas that you focus on as far as your sparring. So
for sure.
Just got to just
look
flip
how powerful. Do you remember Shane Carwin?
Oh yeah.
He was the interim. Yeah. That guy was insane, and I interviewed him back after he beat Frank Mir actually, and got the interim title. When they were waiting on Lesnar to come back. He was a great football player in college. He was actually projected to go to the NFL. He was supposed to go in the 5th round in the NFL draft, but he had hurt his back really bad. So I guess they were just looking at him like damaged goods, and he ended up not going. But dude, he that guy was always squatting and doing plyometrics and power cleans and heavy pressing, and he trained like NCAA football player athlete, and he kept that strength training when he was training for his run through the UFC. The dude was a beast.
And that's the reason why he ended up losing the belt, because someone else was on that same level, and that was Lesnar. Someone that's been through that NCAA training, someone that was big but had cardio for days, but he's farm boy strong, just red beans and rice strong, man. And again, there's someone that and he still trains that way today. He doesn't even have to train that hard anymore by being in the WWE because he has a very limited schedule or whatever. But you can tell it's just like this dude still. It's kind of like if you've been doing it for so long, it's really hard not to do it, not train hard, and not have that thirst to keep training hard, man. And that's what I tell folks, man. Just get started. Once you get started and you're doing it right, you're not going to want to stop doing this, man. Even when you're 80 years old, you're still going to find ways. You're going to find excuses. You're going to find a rhythm to keep training when you're doing it correctly and you're pacing yourself and you actually have some type of focus, something that keeps you going, other than, hey, I just want to lose weight, or I just want to bench 315. Okay, what happens if you do? What's next? Or what happens if you don't hit 315 by this goal that you said? What are you going to do then? You're going to quit? So that's when, like I said, when you have those goals set in place, man, and have a long term, as well as short term and mid term all put together, man, you'll be doing this forever, man. It's hard not to want to just even walk by a gym and not pick something up. You're just in the gym, like, I got to do something, man. Or even just sitting in the house, like, okay, I'm just sitting here. Might as well knock out about 20 push-ups. Well, hell, might as well knock out 5 sets of them. Hell, how many can I do without stopping? You start just going through your head with that, man. And there's just really no rhyme or reason other than the fact that you've got a taste of what it feels like to be strong, and you constantly want to evolve and keep testing yourself, because that's what makes you a fucking human being. That's the thing, man.
Yeah, it's important to have these, just whatever performance goals are important to you, and not to be overly attached to them, like you said, Sincere, where sometimes people put so much weight on achieving a number that they hit it and it's totally anticlimactic, or they never hit it and they feel like why am I even doing this?
It's kind of like that girl you were looking at in high school all that time, like, man, I'm going to get her, and then you get it, like, you hit it. And then it's anticlimactic, like, okay, that wasn't all that.
Well, I love when he draws stories from his program. He's like, it's one time we were talking about cougars, and like, Sincere was like, yeah, you ever notice that they always buy you those old drinks? I was like, no, it doesn't happen that often to me.
Yeah, talk about it, right?
Apparently this happens to you all the time.
That was my old.
They always buy you that. They always buy you that tequila from 1956. I was like, no, I don't know about it. I can't relate to that one.
Hey,
man, I'm just trying to make the show relatable to everyone listening. Okay.
Well, going back to those goals, though, you don't want to you don't want your goals to overshadow the process, because it really is. That's right. Having goals keeps you on track, but it's really we like training every day. We like it's it's part of our daily routine, and whether it's mobility. I love your guest that you had on last week. Vince. How he talks about how mobility is like that's his morning routine or whatever. We have these things that we do every day that's really it's the process, that gets you to the goal. Just really make sure that you don't get off track.
Yeah.
I mean, goals are fun too, right? It's fun to have a target.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And also, goals are very empowering. When you set out to achieve something, and let's say it takes a year or more, and you actually hit it, you actually had the tenacity to stick with it and see it through. That's very empowering, because now you start thinking about, okay, what else can I do that I've always wanted to do? Where if you don't have a performance goal, you don't really have purpose. You just go into the gym and you're like, oh, what am I going to do today? And that, at least me personally, I don't want to train like that. Like every time I train, it's with purpose. It's like there's a goal for that workout, which is leading to a short-term goal, and that's leading to a long-term goal. Otherwise, nothing gets done. You're just spinning your wheels.
Exactly. So, Scott, when we were talking about Louie earlier, man, I want to talk about another thing that you were working on when you were out there. I think I remember seeing it on Instagram, as far as deadlift technique, where you were actually utilizing a chair. You know.
Yeah, man.
So, I thought that was very fascinating. Something I kind of wanted to kind of experiment with, but it's good that we have you on right now. So just talk to you about it first before kind of dipping and dabbing in it. But I can kind of see how that can really benefit folks. So yeah, man, if you don't mind, just kind of elaborate on the whole chair technique.
Yeah. So, that was back when I was out there in August with my swimmer, and the first day there, it was just, Louie and I were kind of watching Carl train, and he was asking me about, what we're doing and giving me, all the tips and stuff like that. But, then on the second day we go back, I'm like, I'm not going to come up here and not train.
Right.
And, I said to him, I said, hey man, would you mind looking at my, my sumo deadlift technique and, giving me anything? He's like, yeah, man, go, get on the platform, start warming up or whatever. And, so I set up the bar and I started training, and then he started working me up and to the point where my form was able to start breaking down so he could see what was going on. He said, you're pulling with your back and you're not using your hips. He said, so let me go grab that chair over there. I'm going to show you this chair deadlift that I developed. And you want to set it up so that either a chair or, we use squat boxes in here, just anything that you can sit on. You want to set it up so that maybe your hips are about your hip crease is an inch or two above parallel, and basically all you're going to do is set up your bar, get into your stance, and you're going to pull the bar up and back as you sit back onto the chair. And as you're sitting, you want to arch your back, get your chest up and arch your back really hard for about 2 seconds. And what he had me do was about 2 or 3 of those 2-second holds, really working on arching the back and get the chest up. And then on the third one, you don't stand up. You drive your hips forward up off the chair. And it teaches you how to use your hips perfectly in the deadlift. And that was, that's one of my issues is when I start getting heavy, I start driving with my hips first, and I use my back to pull it up. And I'm essentially, not with my legs totally straight, but you end up doing kind of like a Romanian deadlift in a sumo stance. And this teaches you to keep the chest up and get your hips engaged earlier and drive your hips into the bar as opposed to pulling your back up. And it was just it was a fantastic drill. It taught me to use my hips better, and you can use it as kind of a technique thing like that. You can work up to a max on it. You can use it as a dynamic, do some speed pulls with 60% of your best deadlift. There's so many ways you can plug it in, but it's definitely good. It definitely is a good teaching tool for engaging the hips for sure.
Yes, what got my interest for the fact that I'm one of those people, and Mike and I talked about this before, that, especially from doing kettlebell sport for so long, I have such a freaking strong back, so one thing I'm really trying to just really focus on when it comes down to my deadlift is really putting all the emphasis really in my hips and not having to rely on my back, because I can sit there and go for days with my back. And, sometimes the people are like, oh my God, your back. I'm like, yeah, seriously, I'm good. Now, I haven't had an injury. I'm good. So trust me, I'm very focused when I'm doing that. But like I said, I really want to focus on really getting that hip drive, man, and putting all the emphasis there and on that hinge and really kind of dropping, really learn how to drop down eventually. Because I don't necessarily do the sumo stance. But one thing, by not doing that, I don't know, for some reason with my long arms, that sumo stance seems like it's almost like a waste of time for me, because with long arms, it's like, okay, I'm not really going very far with this bar.
So, that though, he did say even for his conventional pullers, he'll have him do those drills sumo. Yeah. Because he had one of his girls do those sumo chair deadlifts and actually train her speed pull sumo and train the opposite way. And her conventional, she put 20 or 30 pounds on her conventional pull when she went back to it, because she was building up. Obviously, her hips were weak. Yeah. And by strengthening up the hips, that carried over to her conventional pull. So. Yeah.
Louie talks about that. He goes, wide will carry over to narrow more than the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Sumo has never really felt that comfortable for me either. I've really found the groove that works for me. So at this point, it's just putting in the work. I mean, not to say that technique can't get better. Technique can always get better. But right now, everything feels really comfortable in terms of the groove, the placement, using your legs and back at the same time, which is something that Andy Bolton talks a lot about. But many people, what happens is they do kind of a segmented deadlift where they're driving with the legs and then the back kicks in. Or they're pulling with the back and then the legs kick in, right? And he goes, you need to load up both at the same time. So now you're using your legs and back, and that makes a lot of sense. And he's an incredible deadlifter. He's deadlifted over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's just fun working on stuff. But yeah, if you are a back deadlifter, it's always obvious. It's always obvious visually because you make the same face. Everyone who's a back deadlifter makes the same facial expression. I bet this hurts. My back's about to break.
Exactly. Yeah.
If your face is smooth, if your face is calm when you're lifting heavy, that's a sign that you have a good leg drive, especially those initial 4 inches. Mark Philippi always said, the faster you are off the floor, you want to pull the bar so fast that it explodes to your knees, and then from there it's the back pulls it to lock out. And that's something that's not easy to time perfectly, because if you pull really hard and the bar goes nowhere, then the only thing going up is your ass. and then you're doing a Romanian deadlift, or you're attempting to. It's probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly, man. And that guy knows a couple things about the deadlift too, huh?
Yeah. He's a very good leg deadlifter. If you look at, he has this picture in his office where he's in the starting position, and it looks like he's doing a parallel squat. Yeah. He has really big, strong legs, right? Mark's a strong squatter. So, and then he has a clip on YouTube where he's demonstrating with the lightweight, where he really gets the dip and drive. That's one thing he always tried to teach me, is the dip and drive, and I never really quite got it until maybe last year when I started finally getting good technique on the deadlift. Where if you dip and drive, if you time it just right, it just feels great. The bar just explodes off the ground. The faster the bar comes off the ground, the more confidence you have. If the first couple inches don't come fast, then your confidence, at least for me, is going to go down the drain.
Right.
Sure. You know, Kurt Karwoski deadlifted like that too. He would drop his hips really low and almost look like he was in a squat position.
Right,
Get the chest way up high, conventional stance. And he had that same, he looked like he was squatting with the bar in his hands.
You almost feel like you're going to fall backwards, like you're holding on the bar to stay in place.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't pull from there. You just start from there. The hips come up and then you pull. And Mark's all about creating motion. He said the same thing with military presses, where you do that chest bump, right? He goes, the whole point is you pull the bar down and then launch it. You're just creating a little bit of energy that allows you to drive the bar overhead, as opposed to just pressing from a fixed position. And if you look at the way Olympic lifters, when military press or the press was part of the Olympic lifting competitions back in the day, you notice that these people didn't clean 500 pounds and then do a strict press overhead. They cleaned 500 pounds, dropped the shoulders, chest bump, bam, and then the bar went fast from start to finish. And
that's such a natural fit, especially if you come from like kettlebell sport, Scott. So I know you can relate, especially we already have that chest bump anyway when we're doing jerks, which, pretty sure that came from those techniques from standard military presses from the Russians back then as well. But it just feels better than sitting there trying to just grind your way and get it up there, so
absolutely.
It was such a natural fit.
It gets you past the most dangerous part of the military press, which is those first couple inches. That's where you're likely to have an injury. You're in the weakest position. So the faster you can blast through that area. Same thing with the deadlift, right? The most dangerous position is what? Those first few inches off the ground. Yep. You don't want to be, the longer you're there, the worse it is for you. Nothing good.
That's when Mr. Murphy starts to step in. Like, I'll spot you from the rest of the way.
Like you hit a sticking point and an inch off the floor, it's not going anywhere.
For sure.
You hit a sticking point just below the knees or above, it's not fun, but you can power through that.
Yeah, just pinch, clench, and just go and stand up at that point. So,
man. It's also, you and I had a nice email exchange, Scott, about Joe Rogan's episode with the producers for Cowspiracy, which I thought was a good episode. And,
it was pretty good, yeah.
And I think the part that Joe didn't get is when they kept on bringing up how grass-fed beef is really bad for the environment, because he understood factory farming and why that's terrible, and he was totally in accordance. Yeah, he was totally in accordance with the guys.
Right.
And then he's like, yeah, I just think we need to move towards this grass-fed beef or organic, et cetera. And part of the movie explains how that is an environmental disaster as well.
Right.
And it's almost like he just didn't want to hear that, because it kept coming up.
There was a couple things there because, and that's when, Kip and Keegan are like, well, look, we're talking about factory farms, but that's not really what we know that's bad, but that's not really what the documentary was about. And then when they talked about how, everybody, who, wants to, I'm all for wildlife. I want to support, wildlife and this, that, and the other. And then they say, well, I eat free range. It's like, well, what you're doing is, that's actually worse for wildlife because it requires more space. So when they started pulling out those stats, it's like he used that opportunity to go into the importance of hunting and controlling like carnivorous animal, like thinning the wolf population, all this stuff. He started going off on this tangent. It really kind of got away from the main part of the documentary. But
right. And hunting is way better than going to a factory farm. But if every single person decided to use that method for their meat consumption, there wouldn't be an animal left in the wild.
Well, and you already, we have so many animals already thinning out as it is. Just even without hunting itself, just using palm oil in all your food, you're already thinning out like an orangutan population. No one's eating orangutan, but you might as well be, because I think like last year about 40,000 of them died last year just because of all the foods we consume with palm oil, because they're having to pretty much burn the forest where they're living and in order to get these plants and all that. So, you might as well be eating orangutan, as crazy as that may seem to some people,
According to the documentary, Cowspiracy, they talked about, they talked about the palm oil, and for every acre supposedly of rainforest that the palm oil industry takes, the beef industry takes 15 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And these are stats that, you're not aware of. That's definitely stuff that doesn't, that's not out there in front of people's face all the time. So
right.
Well, of course, when you start looking at most of the companies that use it the most, where like Pillsbury or someone like that, where pretty much every baked good they have is going to use palm oil and things like that. Well, you got to look who's behind that. So there's a reason why those stats are not being thrown out there, because of certain company that starts with them that's protected, by our government to not let those things get out there, because that's bad for business. That's really bad for business. So
that was the great thing about the documentary, was it really brought, light to all that. Now, after the documentary, there's all the fallouts, all the blogs about people debating the statistics. It's like, what? Numbers aside, if the statistics are inflated a little bit, or if they're underinflated, whatever, numbers aside, there's a fucking problem,
Right. And it can't last.
Not being addressed.
Well, the status quo is not going to work.
Whatever the number is, if the number's not zero, then that number is one number too many, and it's not going to be sustainable. And to be selfish enough to like, well, at least it won't happen in my lifetime. Oh, so that's a big fuck you to your great grandkids, huh? Yeah. So maybe you should stop producing. I can see if you're someone that's never having kids and you could care less, but anybody else is like wanting to. Come on,
give a fuck about the human population.
Exactly, or just off yourself in the process if you don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I need some of this polluted air that you're taking up right now if you don't give a damn. So come on, man.
Yeah, there's a band called Fit for an Autopsy, and they have a T-shirt that says, do the world a favor, off yourself, something like that. It's like,
A, I like the name of the group. B, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and find that shirt and buy it, man.
It's something to the effect of protect the planet, kill yourself, something like that.
Could you imagine being the parents of that kid that comes home with that shirt? Where did I go wrong?
Oh man,
that's awesome.
I'll have to find the shirt online.
Yeah, send that link to me. I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and buy that,
I'll
man.
buy it. It's a couple months ago.
Because I constantly say that. That's why it's just ironic that you just brought that up, because I say that all the time. I said, man, like there's so many wastes of human beings out there, man. Like I saw this video where these poachers, man, they just showed this video. I don't know if Scott, you probably seen it too, like the last couple of days over the weekend. And there was this rhino to the point where these poachers pretty much shot him and then cut his horn out, but like pretty much almost all the top of his face, man. It was such a graphic video that, it was one of those things where you're pissed off, you're angry, you're sad, you're feeling helpless. At the same time, you want revenge. It was all those emotions mixed up in one, man. I was saying, you know what, man? Fucking human beings, I swear, man. It's just like this planet the planet would not suck if humans weren't here. Sometimes, those sucky humans weren't here. I'm not gonna say all humans, but those sucky ass humans weren't here. But almost any issue.
So hard to watch, man. But it's like that stuff needs to be out there.
Yeah, it needs to be. And people are like, oh my God, why are you posting this? Because of this. Look at it. Would you have known?
The videos are reality.
Yeah, it's like, would you have known about this had you not seen this gory video? I said, you can sit there and watch a gory, horror movie or whatever else. You have no issue with that. But, this right here, or you can watch a UFC fight where somebody's bleeding out for the most part.
Well, I mean, the sad thing is people do have issue with fake violence, but when it comes to real violence, many people are complicit. I mean, all the people that are talking about censorship, those are people who probably support factory farming.
Exactly.
Knowing or unbeknown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about it.
Who gives a shit about a Rob Zombie movie? I mean, that's fake.
It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. Like in Hostel, those movies are graphic. Guess what? It's all fake.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not actually killing people there.
Those are the reason why we have such a violent society is because of those movies. Like, nah, man, have you ever watched these idiots in a factory farm? Have you ever watched them? Go to work like, come on, man. It makes Rob Zombie's movies look like Disney movies, like a Pixar movie.
Yeah,
man.
And, I mean, to go back to the hunting, it's one thing like if these guys are like Joe, I know he hunts and he consumes, the meat that he kills or whatever. But you get these jackasses, these like trophy hunters that do game hunting. I saw a video of this. Oh God, it was this guy. He was like, sport hunting, if it is a fucking sport. He had a lion up in a tree. It looked to be a female lion. I don't know. It didn't have a mane, but it was climbing up this tree trying to get away from this guy, scared as piss, this massive, beautiful lion. And he's hitting it with a bow. And, it's got one arrow in it, and he's torturing this fucking thing. It's up in a tree, and he just keeps hitting it with arrows, and he's got this fucking grin on his face. It's like, God damn, man. I mean, that stuff just, burns your fucking soul when you see that stuff. Man.
Exactly.
The fact that someone takes pleasure in that.
Yeah.
That's a sad commentary.
Man.
Yeah, I was like,
I'll buy the, hey, I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do to put food on my table. Okay, if you feel like you got to eat meat and you're willing to do it and, whatever, I mean, if you've come to terms with that, at least it's nourishing you, to some extent.
Right.
We could debate, you can get into the whole health debate outside of that, but at least they're not just doing it to cut off its head
and put the fucking head on a wall or something. Like, what is the fucking point? You come in.
Well, the biggest myth is that they're like, the trophy hunting raises funds to protect animals and the wildlife. And
do you hear how crazy that is? It's like you go and kill the animal to protect the animals.
Well, like Maasai Park, for example, they make a lot of money off tourism.
Right.
So, and also, and they don't make that much off tourism either. So we don't want to look at this from an economic standpoint, saying, okay, well, let's make this profitable so that we can serve these animals. You want to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
You can't make everything about profits, man, because that's when no one's going to give a fuck. They'll look at the numbers and say, well, this doesn't really add up. And that's just the wrong way to look at it.
Right.
But the whole trophy hunting thing does not lend a lot of cash flow to conservation. That's a big myth.
No.
Big fucking myth.
Not at all.
Yeah, and then these psychos, they talk about, they mount the head. Oh, what a beautiful deer that is, or what? Really?
But here's the thing. I always think about it. It's funny. What if the day comes where you just sit there and we should start take those assholes and you kill them and then you mount his head on the wall. Somebody comes in your house like, oh my God, what the hell, man?
It's a beautiful human being that
I'm like, but look at him, man. Look at his cheekbones. Look at his structure. Look at those eyes. He's a specimen to behold. It's like, no, dude, there's a human on your wall. Well, what makes that so gory and unacceptable compared to another living being who had no say so?
I think people need to clean up their own backyard. What I mean by that is, you look at people that got really angry about Cecil the Lion, I was glad to see people that angry because it was worthy of getting angry over it. But how many of those same people had factory farm meat that night?
Right.
Support factory farming. So I mean, people that buy factory farming every day for 20 years, how's that better than some guy who killed an animal in the wild? I mean, that's not great either, but at least that animal was in the wild.
Right.
Or
living his life.
And the people that get bent out of shape about the Yulin, dog festival, which is absolutely sickening. But I mean, I see people on social media and people that I know who fucking eat meat, and they're getting all jacked up about the diet. It's like, look,
hey man, you can't post.
They look at dogs like you look at pigs and cows.
Right.
You can't sit there and post about, that dog festival while you're sitting there wearing your leather jacket, posting that picture on Instagram, boycott Yulin. It's like, dude, you're wearing a leather jacket. It's like,
at the same time, you want to support people wherever they're at.
Right.
Because what you don't want to be is that dogmatic person going like, oh, you don't give a fuck about animals, you eat them. And it's like, even though it's true that they're eating animals, that doesn't mean that none of us started off down this path
exactly
organically, right? We all came to it at some point or another for various reasons. So you want to encourage someone on that line. So if someone's first step is, hey, I want to go help abandoned dogs and cats, etc.
Right.
And they're still eating meat, but that's their first step, right? Then the second step may be a progression on that, and then you keep going. So I want to be inclusive, encourage people where they're at, rather than someone's going down a road and you're like, oh, well, why are you doing that? You don't do.
Yeah, my thing is, really, have the conversation, and a lot of times, man, just do more asking than telling people. If anything, like, well, you shouldn't be eating that, like, or pretty much. No. And also, like Mike just alluded to, the first thing to do is let your life be the testimony. And people are going to see what you're doing and like, you know what, man, I seen you doing this. And like, I'm really interested. What's really going on with those rhinos, man, that you were talking about? And then they was like, and then it's like, okay, look, I got a video right here if you want to see for yourself. And then they see it like, shit, man, I didn't know that was going on. That's messed up. And then next thing is, what can I do to help? And that's how it is. Instead of bashing, like I said, when you get organizations like, and I'll call them out, like with Peter, that sometimes their intentions are good, but their methods suck ass. Because it's not for those who are not exactly where, like right now, all three of us are in three different areas, in this game, of being cruelty free and, really going out there and being advocates for all living beings. We're in three different phases right here. I'm right here in the catch up phase right here. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit there. We're not all three going to bash each other. Mike's been pretty much doing this for like well over 2-3 decades, so, and again, but one thing about it, what helped bring me here, other than where my wife is in this journey, where Steve Carter is in this journey, all this time, I've known Mike for almost 10 years now. I've watched him. I've seen his life has been his testimony, and don't think that I wasn't paying attention. But the thing is, again, like they always say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's the thing. So when that awareness is there, you're paying attention. And, here comes Scott. And then, so I'm seeing other aspects of my life that are making sense. Okay, here's the strength game. Here's how you can still be in the strength game, doing it right, and at the same time, also being conscious about other living beings out there and doing your thing. And so the same thing I saw with Mike. So I'm like, okay, I got two perfect examples right here on two separate sides of the spectrum right here. Like Scott came from, pretty much I met Scott through the kettlebell world. Mike's through the strength game. Like, these are two aspects of my life. Then here's my wife who's like, F a gym, but then she's, she's bringing another awareness to me, from her perspective. So I'm learning from it, but none of you guys have ever preached to me. You're saying like, oh man, you need to do this, this, and this. You guys just lived your life, and I was paying attention. And that's how we learn from a lot of people. That's how kids learn. They watch parents. So I always tell parents, instead of trying to tell kids what to do, just be conscious of what you do, because that's what they're learning from. Right. And we're all children in some aspect of where we are in our life as far as learning something. We're never 100% grown-ups. You would hope not to be anyway, because being a grown-up sucks in some aspects. Because, like now that we know, got to take responsibility. Once you got to take the responsibility. So that's the part about growing up.
Well, that's one of the good things about PETA is that they have done more to show the horrors of factory farming than any other organization that I can think of. In fact, the first time I was exposed to it was through them. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of a lot of their methods, no doubt about it. Right. But they were at the forefront of getting that out there, because like you, I just didn't think about it. There was no reason to think about it, because you never really exposed to that information. You're just looking at a finished product on your plate. Right. Yeah. And a well dressed up product at that. Then you realize like, wait a minute, man, that filet mignon doesn't look red like that all the time. But then you go back like, come on, idiot. You took biology. You know what happens to like a carcass just a day or so after that. There's a reason why you have formaldehyde in all your experiments in biology, in high school. It's like, it's not all pretty and red and whatever else. It's like, it's gray and green and yellowish, and who would want to eat that? So of course they got to dress the package up. So people, a lot of times people are being duped. That's why a lot of times when we bring up these things, they're like, nah, man, come on. It's not like that. Because again, they dress it up for you. Of course they can't sell the real finished product. One of the main reasons why a lot of men won't give up meat is because they're worried about being made fun of by friends.
Of course.
I'm talking about grown men here. I'm not talking about teenagers under peer pressure, because the guy decides to give it up. He goes to a barbecue. It's like, no, I'm just going to have this. He's going to get ragged on. And I've had people admit to me, they're like, I just got tired of going to different functions and there's nothing to eat there. I was like, come on, man. I was like, you gotta have that's the reason. You gotta have a more compelling reason to go down this road. Right. You're not so easily dissuaded.
Exactly. And there's also that whole thing about, it's advertised that, eating meat and drinking beer, that's when you're being a man. There's all these different things. It's just the marketing machine about that, meat is what's for dinner. And listen to the guy talking. Meat is what's for dinner. In particular,
two of the most estrogenic things you can consume right
exactly. there. Exactly. Because, a lot of those grains that went in the beer is also the grains that went into the cow that you're eating right now. So now you're getting like secondhand, grains and estrogenic things going on. So it's and you wonder why you're crying when you're drinking all that beer. Come on, man.
Well, those are more, that's good for you, Mike, because that's even more potential clients for the,
I should be encouraging you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, drink that beer, man.
Drink that beer, man.
They call me for some aggressive strength testosterone booster when you need it. Yeah?
And some EC.
Yeah, EC, right.
Take 1 cap of EC for every beer you drink. There you go. Sales go up tenfold.
Oh, hell yeah.
4 hours. Just have those at the bar every time someone orders a beer. Say, hey, take one of these.
Have a bowl of what's your shit, right?
Oh man.
Yeah, but some of the other interesting things in that Joe Rogan episode is like when Mac Danzig came up as an example of a guy who competed at a high level on a vegan diet. And Joe didn't say it outright, but he insinuated that some people said that Matt didn't reach a high level because of his vegan diet, when maybe he didn't reach a high level just because he wasn't good enough, regardless of what he's on. Because when you look at his strength and conditioning, he looked good, he was strong and all that. And so, I mean, why is it your diet? Why is it when a vegan doesn't achieve a high level, it's because of the diet? But think about how many meat eaters don't achieve a high level either.
Yeah, no one ever says that.
Well,
his training camp could have been better.
Because he was eating horse meat the last fight.
Exactly.
You cut that horse meat out, he'd start winning.
How could you say that Mac? Obviously, Mac didn't wear a belt. But the guy won his season, The Ultimate Fighter.
Right.
He was in, he had what, 7-year pro career, and a good chunk of that was in the UFC. And it's like, even though, we talk a little bit about that.
Well, think about how many meat eaters at the amateur level never make it to the UFC. No one's ever going to say, oh, it's because of their diet.
And like that Vegan Gains video where he says, you know who else didn't, ever make it to the championship level, Joe? All the meat eaters that Mac beat.
Right.
Is it because was his diet superior to those guys? No, it's just. I mean, you're talking about.
It's never this either or situation. It's not this one thing for anything. It's for anything. Just like even going to the recent fight, even with like Johnny Hendricks, every time, and I'm going to go and say this. Every time a fighter starts working with Mike Dolce, and, I always notice that everybody makes a big emphasis on that. He's changed his dieting, and, he's been working with Mike Dolce, and then some of these fighters recently seems like those fighters end up losing. So we're going to blame Mike Dolce now? Can we do that?
Right.
Can we blame Mike Dolce for the reason that Johnny Hendricks lost or Ronda lost? Can we do that now? Because if we use that same type of thinking that's being placed on Mac Danzig, guys like that, then we can say the same thing about them as well. Like, oh man, shouldn't have done a Dolce diet. He'll never be the champion now as long as he keeps doing that. We can do the same thing.
It's got nothing to do with diet. Obviously, These guys need to be consuming nutrients to fuel their performance. But I mean, when the further you go up the mountain, the fewer people there are. Until finally the guy on top of the mountain's got the belt. It's just, the herd thinning and thinning. And for somebody, anybody gets into the UFC, you're a great fucking fighter. Mac was a great fighter.
And that's a small percentage just alone by being in the UFC. Just like people that make it to the NFL. All those kids playing popcorn the ball right now, probably only about 2% of them are going to make it to the NFL in their lifetime in that age group. Compared to
they talk about diet and athletes. Athletes make up such a small percentage of the population. I mean, how big of the population is vegan? Let alone vegan athletes.
Right.
It's probably the same percentage of vegan athletes out there is probably similar to the same percentage of regular people out in general population. I mean, there's just not a lot of people that are vegans, period, let alone vegan athletes. But I think you're going to start seeing, like, look at you got Mac, look at the NFL guy David Carter, the 300-pound
300-pound vegan, yeah.
His career got better after going vegan.
Yeah.
His health improved, his joints got better, he's playing better. This probably raised his stock in the NFL. So, I mean, you're going to start seeing, more and more, especially on the strength and power side. There was always the endurance guys. There's plenty of endurance, vegan athletes. Look at Scott Jurek, hands down the best, distance run, ultra distance runner on the planet. He's vegan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's plenty of the endurance guys. But, now that you're starting to see strength and power guys, like Patrick Baboumian
here's what that's doing. Here's what that's doing also. These guys are also breaking another myth that, you got to have protein, meat. You got a lot of these guys who have a very carb heavy diet. And now carbs are not the enemy because now their performance is a lot better. Their strength is going up, and they're not dying from carbs. They're not having diabetes or heart attacks and all this other stuff. So now things are, it makes people kind of look at carbs and get like, wait a minute, maybe carbs are not the enemy. They never were the enemy. A nutrient is never going to be your freaking enemy. Okay, you can't pick one nutrient like that right there. Yeah, that guy right there, that freaking fat.
Between white processed sugar and brown rice. It's like, come on, man. Everything gets lumped under the carb category to the point now people are telling you to avoid fruit. Because
I know, that's just, which is bananas, literally.
Yeah, it's like that's the reason why people are obese, from all the apples and oranges and pears that they're eating.
It's not all the Big Macs, French fries, and all that pizza. It's definitely that banana.
So you just had one too many fruits, man. Just cut out 5 grapes.
Hey man, I gotta lay off these melons, man. These strawberries, man. Give me a gut. I gotta do something about this. I gotta do something about the strawberry belly I got, man.
And the other thing that I loved, and when they brought up, Carl Lewis.
Oh yeah.
First thing out of Rogan's mouth. Well, steroids. It's like, okay, well, what about all the meat eaters that
everyone is using anabolics at
right.
stage of the game. Yeah.
It's an equal opportunity employer. Trust me, it does not care.
It's got nothing to do with the diet. All your diet does is give your body nutrients. They all use performance enhancers at the highest levels. So it's like anytime a vegan does it, it's steroids or there's some excuse. It's just they need to drop that bull. That's the thing that pisses me off. It's not the whole. What diet's better, the vegan diet or the paleo diet or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that stuff. It's just like, just recognize at the scientific level, you're getting amino acids. You're either getting them from the plants themselves or you're getting them from the animal that ate the plants, and that's why it's in the meat that you eat. It's like, come on, people aren't eating carnivorous animals. They're not eating lions and other animals. Eat other animals. They're eating animals that eat fucking plants, or sometimes.
And even if they were, those carnivorous animals are eating animals that were eating plants.
Exactly.
Right?
It's always funny, like, even like, well, you guys, you're gonna have B12 deficiency. I'm like, the food you get from a factory farm, that's a B12 deficiency. And trust me, it's not like they're being fortified with B12 on that factory farm, just like I'm fortifying myself directly with B12. So at least I'm getting right to the source. I'm cutting out the middle animal here. So you're getting down a more broken down, because it's not like you got very rich soil in this Western country of ours, where it's producing like just rich B12 soil after all the crap that's going into it now and the runoff and all this due to a lot of factory farming. So don't even give me that excuse,
There's nothing special in flesh that you can't get from plants. All it is a more calorically dense nutrient delivery system. And, and I'm sure, Mike, when you have Dr. Garth on, he'll talk a lot more about, stuff like this. But, what's interesting is when you listen to him and you listen to people like Dr. Michael Greger, whose book, How Not to Die, fantastic, by the way. When you listen to him talk about, back around the turn of the century, we didn't have this longevity problem that we had. Well, it's not really a problem, but people were dying from infectious disease, not chronic disease. And malnutrition was an issue. So you were looking at, how can I get the most calories in my body per bite? Well, meat and sugar were great for that because they're very calorically dense. But now that we're living, what did they call, the rare instances of diabetes and cancer and stuff back? They call them diseases of affluence, because the affluent people who could eat, more food and more calories and live longer, they suffered those diseases. Yeah. So now we've got this issue with longevity, and we're not dying of infectious disease left and right anymore. We got better medical care nowadays. It's chronic disease is starting to become a bigger issue.
Yeah, well, the thing is, those diseases.
A high-calorie delivery system for nutrients.
Right. Yeah. A lot of those diseases that, people were dying from before, let's just say like this. Yeah, people were dying at a much earlier age back then, but now you're just dying slowly. Now it's just, you just kind of put like a chopped and screwed mode of whatever ailment that you have now. It's being prolonged. It's just stretching it out. So my thing is, okay, yeah, so people are dying around 35 and 40 years old at, the turn of the century and blah, blah. But a lot of them lived a full life. They were thriving, and sometimes it was just things that popped, the Black Plague, whatever else. But now you got people living to be 80, 90 years old now. But how much of those 90 years were they actually thriving and living? Right. Guess what? A lot of times they stopped thriving when they were around 30. So guess what makes them any different than the person 200 years ago?
They may have never thrived.
Exactly.
Some people have never been in a thriving state.
So what makes them any different than the person that lived 200 and 300 years ago, when you're pretty much, to my mentally and emotionally or whatever, you died at the same age that person died physically, 200, 300 years ago. So what's the point, if you're not thriving at that point? Why do I want to be 85 years old and my life totally sucks and I just wake up pretty much like, oh, well, another day, it is what it is. Come on, man, that's not living. So what's the point unless somebody just goes out there and just really thriving out there? So my thing is, since you've been afforded these extra years now, thanks to all these advances in science and technology and all that, dude, don't take that lightly. Utilize that. Run with it. That's a gift. Take it. Go for it.
Sure. Well, and I mean, and then the paleo people all like to chime in about, paleo man, we've been eating this way forever. You know what? Paleo man didn't give the fuck about health. And
he gave a fuck about that saber-toothed tiger that was after his ass. That's
he
what
wanted to survive, man. They spent their days were spent gathering food for survival. They would have eaten anything.
Yeah, you would eat anything you came across. If they came across a storehouse of grains, they would. If someone took a time capsule and sent 12 loaves of bread back in time, and they came across.
And you give them a bite of it, they're like, "Whoa, what the hell is this?"
Yeah, they're eating for survival, not performance.
Right. And I always laugh at that whole we. When they start bringing up the whole weed thing, and I was like, you really do your history and track and then also know your audience, because a lot of times that we you're speaking of doesn't necessarily pertain to everyone. So that's the thing. Right. So really look at that, your paleo man, and look at other societies that were going on way before that time. Really do your history.
Well, I always say, who cares what?
Who gives a damn how you ate? Look, dude.
I don't care what people did back then. It's like, let's focus on what we can do now. We have way more information ever on nutrition. So let's use that to determine what's optimal now, as opposed to what people did 1,000 years ago.
When I open up my back door, when I go out in my backyard, there's not a freaking mastodon or a saber-toothed tiger sitting there waiting on my ass. So I'm not worried about what went on way back then. Hell, I don't even have like a giraffe or a wild elephant in my backyard. I can even go a little bit more toward my own culture here. I'm not worried about those things, man. I don't have a warring tribe coming after me right now. None of that stuff. So, like Mike said, I can focus on right now. Let's get off this whole, well, this is how we were before. Well, if that's the case, then let's, why are you so overdressed? You know what? Just throw on a cloth, dude, and let's just walk around. Somebody, paleo man and dressed like that. He wasn't wearing like these $100 weightlifting shoes. Come on, man. He wasn't even wearing shoes. So
the bumper plates and doing kick pull-ups.
Yeah, stop going to the gym, man.
Don't drive your Escalade down to Whole Foods. Put on your loincloth and start hoofing it through the woods if you really want to.
No, don't put on the loincloth, man. Just certain things, just leave that out. So yeah.
Well, that's why with all these arguments, the truth is always in the performance, right?
And there it is.
Which is why, as Sincere said, when you see people that are thriving, that's more powerful than, let's say, me pitching you on something at dinner.
Right.
And you're going, yeah, you're saying all the right things, but looking at you, it's you don't paint a pretty picture for what you're saying, That's why I always tell plant-based people, I go, look, the most important thing you can do is be just the epitome of health, man. Be a healthy, thriving person, so that every time you meet someone, they're going, man, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to learn more about it.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's the difference between plant-based and vegan too. A vegan diet can be anything, man. That's not, it can be Oreos, French fries, and beer.
Yeah, they're all vegan.
Yeah, but if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, chances are you're going to be in pretty.
You want to be compassionate to yourself as well. So I appreciate the sentiment of I don't want to kill animals, so I'm going to cut that out. But make sure you're eating healthy too, because we want you to stick around. We want you to be healthy and feel good. Be compassionate to yourself.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, it starts at home. So it's like you got to fix yourself first, man. You can't go out and save the world or try to save the world when you're pretty much running on empty the entire time.
Right.
Your energy, you're not going to have the energy to go out there and fight for them. It's not going to happen because you can't fight for yourself right now. So keep that. And that goes with any diet that you're participating in. No matter how you're eating, you need to think about that too. It's like, man, I got to really take care of myself. If you're sitting there thinking like, okay, I don't feel that great, and that becomes a consistent reply, and a consistent feeling, hey man, get on it, fix that. Because you're not doing us any favors by walking around here being all humdrum and barely making it. You're kind of in my way. You're the guy that's driving very slow on the freeway in front of me because you get your brain's all foggy. So you're making me late to where I need to be. So you're affecting someone some way, somehow. You're running up healthcare costs, which is running up my taxes. So you are affecting me by not taking care of yourself. That's the thing about it. So help me out, man. Help me out. I'm helping you out. I'm doing my best to make sure that I'm not a burden on you emotionally, financially, or whatever else. And so I expect the same, to on the others. So.
Well, the other thing too, Mike, about the episode, right as they were wrapping up after all this talk about the athletes and optimizing performance and all this, back and forth. I mean, I do appreciate, where Joe said, I'm not really the right guy to be talking about this. So he did kind of admit that he was a little, he's not really, as far as having the knowledge and stuff like that about human physiology. I mean, obviously he's regurgitating stuff that he's kind of bought into because it aligns with how he eats. And, on the flip side of it, Kip and Keegan, I mean, I think they did okay holding their own with that kind of stuff, but they're not. No,
they did. And I appreciate the fact that Joe has
give a platform. Yeah.
And I've met Joe in person, and he's a very nice guy. He's a very cool guy. He's always been very complimentary of me on his show many times. So I feel like Joe's an open-minded guy. That
I was just about to say that. Who's to tell? He's one of those guys. He's very curious by nature, and who's to say? After talking to those guys, that he didn't start looking into it a little further and you doing more research on it. And who knows?
They set it up. They said, well, we're not really the right guys to talk to either. What you really need is to get somebody on. And he's like, well, who should I get? And they're like, well, Dr. Garth Davis is a good guy, and I think they threw out a couple of the other, maybe it was like Neil Bernard or some of the other, good guys, plant-based side of the coin. And it seemed like he was headed toward, okay, well, and who could I get from like the paleo world or whatever to come on? And it seemed like they were headed towards a debate, maybe get some guy. And what would we end up with? Mark Sisson the next week by himself, and Joe sounded fucking mystified every time he opened his mouth. I'm like, are you kidding me?
He loves hearing what Mark is saying because it's what he wants.
Yeah, it validates his current
state. We're
doing
something and someone reinforces what we're already doing. We're like, oh man, this is great.
But one of the other pros on there. Well, unfortunately, that kind of spiraled on Joe's Twitter feed and stuff like that, and Dr. Garth got pulled into it, and another big guy in the paleo community, Rob Wolf got, mentioned. And I know that Dr. Garth has some back and forth with Rob on Twitter a little bit. And I think he was saying, hey, it looks like we could possibly have, be guests, on the episode to do a debate. And Garth's bringing this from a scientific standpoint. He's like, look, I've gone through the research. I've got my science, I know you do too. Let's get out there and talk. Let's bring this stuff out there. Let's go back and forth and have a real, honest, professional
discussion
debate.
Yeah. And then let the people decide, because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Inform people. Let them make their own. Present the best that you got, and let people make their own decisions and stuff like that. And unfortunately, how things go on
Twitter.
Online. Nothing comes out of it. So.
Yeah, and then there was some silly back and forth there as well.
Oh yeah. It was. Well, you take Rob Wolf, who I don't know much about because I'm not in the.
No, Rob's been on our show before, and I like Rob. I know Rob personally. I think Rob's a really good guy. I think sometimes he's just fucking around on Twitter. It's like, hey, let's grapple afterwards and stuff like that. He's just trying to be funny and.
Well, I mean,
sometimes in social media you don't know how things are perceived, but at the same time. I mean, if you're going to use that argument, then you can say, okay, I want you to go run a marathon, triathlon, that Dr. Garth.
Or, go grapple with Mac Danzig or one of the Diaz brothers.
Or James Wilkes.
James Wilkes. Yeah, exactly. Some folks who.
Nutrition expert, too.
Yeah, okay, well, after the debate, you've got to grapple with me. Okay, that's apples.
No, it's so silly. It'd be like me arguing with an astrophysicist saying we're going to talk about the universe and then we're going to go deadlift after, and whoever wins that,
Someone they won the argument.
Nothing.
All right.
Are we debating gravity, Mike? What are we doing here?
Well, and I mean, Rob's comment, some of his comments were just ridiculous, like, debating with
everything. Yeah.
Oh, he said something to the extent of debating with a vegan is like debating with somebody who believes the world is flat. And, it's like, look, if you're talking about how you're coming from such, you're this big science guy and this, that, and the other, get in a debate with the guy. Garth's thrown out, his research left and right. It's like, get into a debate, get on a neutral platform. I'd love to. I don't know nothing about paleo. I'd love to hear what he's got. I would love to learn more. I'd love to know what their research states and stuff like that. I'd want to know. I think that'd be a fantastic debate, much better than Mark Sisson telling stories on the Joe Rogan podcast the next week after.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna have Dr. Garth Davis on our show. He wrote a book called Proteinaholic, which is really good. I'm going to have to go back, and I read through it fairly quickly when I first got it. I'm going to go back and reread it and really absorb it before he comes on the show in April. But I think that would be a really interesting debate for sure. But but the thing is that people are going to do what they want to do, no matter what they hear. Yep. So it is useful for those people that are kind of on the fence, right? That's where these kind of debates are most useful, where people are going, I'm leaning towards this way, but I just have some concerns about this, and this, and then someone comes along and presents some good information, and that quells those concerns, and now they can push forward.
The info that I would just wish people would admit to is that you do not need to eat meat. You choose to, if you want to eat meat, fine, that's your choice.
Right.
But I hate the whole brainwashing. You need to eat meat. No, you don't.
Right.
Just be honest about that kind of stuff.
Right.
And don't say, it's so hard. Maybe 30, 40 years ago it was a lot harder being vegan, but nowadays it's so much easier. Don't talk about how hard it is to be vegan, because it's not hard.
No, what it is, it's hard to give up that drug, of eating that way and giving up that drug of that habit that you've had, pretty much maybe most of your life. And a lot of times that drug that's within those foods that you're consuming. That's another thing, because they're making it where it is. They're making it where it is hard, especially with a lot of, the conventional way that food is being produced. They're making it hard for you to give it up, and you don't even realize it. So that's the thing about it. So yeah, and don't say that, okay, I need it. Just say, I really want this. I really want it. But for some reason that sounds wrong. It's like, I don't want to seem like I have a relationship with it. But then you do. Right. You do when you say you really want that. So you need air. So last time I saw nobody put a meat oxygen mask over your face whenever you lost air or something like this. So you don't necessarily need it like that. So you need oxygen.
Well, the problem with a lot of people is that food is the highlight of their day, right? They have jobs they don't like. They have relationships they're not enthusiastic about. They're just not happy campers. And this is a lot of people. So they gravitate towards, I'm going to eat this for lunch because it makes me feel this way, or I'm going to eat this for dinner because I like the taste of it, and I'm going to go have a couple drinks on Friday to escape.
And I can't wait to have dessert after dinner, but even though they haven't even brought out the appetizer yet, you're already thinking about dessert.
Then it reinforces their inertia,
their relationship,
eating garbage that's not giving them any real energy, so they're in this fatigued state all the time. You're not going to make any positive changes in your life when you're in just this state of fatigue constantly.
So when it's like that on the vegan side of the coin too, man. You can be totally unhealthy. You can be a totally unhealthy vegan. There's some amazing, vegan junk food out there. We got this great place here in Atlanta, Revolution Donuts. We
got Reverie Bakery in Dallas, man. That place is like a crack house. It's like we'll go in there and spend all this money. Like, what did we just do? And the thing is, and thanks, Jasmine, for that suggestion. Yeah, appreciate that.
Well, you want to infuse. Instead of telling people to cut stuff out of their routine, I always say add all of this to your routine, right? Just add all of this stuff in. Buy fruits and vegetables, etc., sweet potato, whatever it may be. And what happens is that starts pushing other stuff out organically.
Yeah, you just don't have time. You don't feel the need. Yeah, exactly.
You just ate all these things I told you to eat. And I'm like, you can go eat that other stuff too if you want it, but you're not going to want it after a while.
When they load up on foods that have a lot of fiber and a lot, all that stuff. Yeah, you eat a bunch of fruit, vegetables. You're not going to want
starches. This is like, dude, you're not even trying. Those are pretty much to-go meals too. You're not even finishing the whole thing because you're so satisfied and so nutrient dense. Whereas everything else is like, okay, 5 minutes later, you're like, okay, you're already thinking about the next meal. You're like, okay, how much time do I have before I take this nap and then wake up and go eat again? Because you're not nourished.
And the problem with the vegan junk food is people often frame it like it's somehow healthy, which it isn't.
Exactly.
So people say, it doesn't have any
animal products, so it's healthy. It's like, no.
This almond cookie is pure sugar, man. I don't have any illusions about it.
Hey, man, those.
If you're going to eat it, you eat it knowing that.
Thank you.
This is not something that's adding any energy.
Hey, man, those cinnamon roll and red velvet Oreos are still Oreos. Okay, that's at the end of the day.
If I want to eat a donut, I'm not. I want to eat a freaking donut. I'm not doing it because.
Yeah, I'm not looking for nutrients. I'm not getting the ingredients and trying to find how much protein is in this donut. I'm like, it's a donut. I'm just trying to make sure there's no animal products in the donut. I know what it is. I'm going to accept it for what it is. It's a damn donut. Okay,
right.
So it's not going to be the miracle worker that's going to help me, raise my deadlift by 5 freaking pounds this week.
Well, I will say though that having done this for a long time, things have changed a great deal since, let's say, 1994. Like when I first heard about plant-based eating. I was a vegetarian since I was 15, but I was still eating some dairy and eggs and so forth. I never even knew what a vegan was until I moved to Oregon for a year, went to Lewis and Clark College, which was very progressive at the time. They had a lot of vegan options even in the school cafeteria. This is 1994. things have changed a lot since then. Where now, like you guys said, you can walk into a restaurant, there's vegan options, but more importantly than that is there's a lot of good information, like your book, Scott. That kind of stuff wasn't around back then. You just had to figure this shit out on your own.
Yeah.
And most people who tried failed miserably, and then they just gave up and said, I guess this doesn't work. And because I did it for animal compassion reasons, I was very committed to finding a way to make this work.
Right.
Willing to go through the trial and error and so forth. And when I started eating a lot of legumes and nuts and seeds and real foods, I started feeling really good. And it took a little while to adapt to the transition. So that's why I always encourage people, don't feel like you need to do this overnight.
Yeah, be patient, man.
You can be gradual with it. Just cut things out. Go at your own pace. Some people will do great cutting everything out and making that switch. I think Sabina Scala said she made a bet with one of her clients who's a vegan. He's like, oh, you're not going to be able to do it for a month. And she made that bet. And so she just went vegan overnight with the intent of just doing it for a month and then going back to what she was doing. But she felt so good during that month, she never ate meat again. And that was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So there's going to be examples like her, and then there's going to be other examples of people where it's too much too soon.
Right.
So my brother was like that. He just cut things out gradually a long time ago, and then he's been doing it for a long time since then.
Well, and it's like you said, start adding more, get more plants on the plate. Just start adding. It's like you said, don't even think about cutting stuff out. Start getting more plant foods in, and then it's naturally going to shift. As you do that over time, and at any time people. You think about, what am I cutting out? They go into that diet panic mode.
Exactly. I can't have this anymore. I'm like, okay.
You can
quit thinking about without.
Right? Like trying to get guys to stop doing curls. It's kind of a similar conundrum. So what do you say? It's like, look, go do your squats first, go do your deadlifts first, and then
you can curl.
Hit some weighted pull-ups, hit some overhead presses,
some chin-ups.
By the time they do all of that, they're ready to fucking go. You're not thinking about those curls.
Do curls.
No, or better yet, when you do those pull-ups, do chin-ups instead, and you won't even thinking about those curls. Because you're looking like, wait a minute, my biceps are pumped up. I haven't done my curls yet. You're like, aha. How about that?
Right, you do weighted ring pull-ups. Believe me, your arms are blowing
exactly.
up. Your overhead presses, your shoulders, your triceps, it's all blowing up.
You care less
You're doing
about
heavy
curls.
weights and right amount of sets. So, but again, it's saying start off with this. You're automatically going to. It's what the Buddha called skillful means, right? Mm-hmm. You get a person to do A and they automatically do B without you having to bring it up.
Well, and that's why it's so good that we got like these medical guys, like you talk about Dr. Davis, you talk about Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Joel Furman, Neil Bernard, all these guys who are in the medical community. None of these guys.
And Dr. Garth Davis started off as a high protein
carb,
heavy meat. He said he used to recommend that to all of his weight loss patients.
It was even in one of his first books or whatever.
And he was talking about how much of a hypocrite he felt because he was so unhealthy in that. Like he had to do a photo shoot where they wanted him to run up some stairs, and he was really sweating. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it,
But they weren't like ethical vegans, doing it, for
No.
He was looking for the most healthy way to eat. So he started going through the research. Same with Dr. Michael Greger, and that led them to the ethical, compassionate side, which is great.
That's
but
right.
you can't, you can't say, that they went into it all about health. And it's so great that these guys are writing books and going through all the research and trying to separate all that, because there's so much bad research and bad science out there, and when you look at who funds what, it makes my head. So it's just I don't even I just yawn when people start, the research says, but they spend all that time going through, putting in the books. Like I said, Dr. Greger's book has like 160 or 170 pages alone of citations, and this guy doesn't, and when you look at Greger, he doesn't take any money. All his book sales, all his seminars, anything that he does on that side of the coin, all that money gets donated. So you can't even say, well, he's funded by Big Strawberry, so of course he's going to say, So he's just trying to get to the, real, what's the most optimal for health.
Well, he made a good point in an interview too. He goes, look, anyone who tells you in a book that you can eat bacon and be healthy is going to sell a lot of books. That's the kind of stuff people want to hear. People will love to hear that. You're like, oh, are you kidding me? I can put butter in my coffee and I can put butter on my bacon.
And I can put bacon in my buttered coffee. Like hell, man, that's a complete breakfast. Now somebody's listening right now, like, damn, I didn't think about bacon in the coffee. Sincere might be on to something.
It's good that you got these real, guys, and they're out there working with real patients and getting real success, and they're going through the science, they're going through the research, they're out there learning and trying, more studies. It's not like they think they found it, they're constantly, Greger does a ton of research. He puts out 3 new videos and 2 articles a week, based on what him and his team of researchers, can find out there. He addresses things that are relevant. And, it's like he said in his book, How Not to Die. There's only one diet out there that's ever been shown to, combat, reverse and halt cardiovascular disease, and that, whole food, plant-based diet. And why isn't that the default diet,
Yeah, but I like what you said before, Scott. It goes, you can do what you want, but just don't tell me it's not working for me.
Right.
That's the argument.
And that's the thing right
works,
there.
That show works. It's funny because it reminds me of bringing back Mark Sisson's website. I remember a long time ago, someone sent me a thread on his forum where I guess the discussion came up, and of course my name came up somewhere along there. And someone posted a picture of me lifting a heavy kettlebell, like, oh, look at this guy, he's been doing this for a long time. And someone posted, it's like, yeah, his results are impressive, but no matter what he achieves on this vegan diet, he's still going to be missing out on his full potential. It's like, okay, Nostradamus, thanks for telling me what I'm fucking capable of or not. It's like, so that's an example of what I'm talking about, where people, like, the truth is right in front of someone and they still want to find a way not to believe it. It's like, yeah, he's strong, but think about how much stronger he could have been.
Yeah, the wonderful life of the yeah buts. Okay,
it's like, well, how strong? And I'm not the strongest guy in the world, and I'm not trying to say I am, but how strong do I have to get until I show the diet works,
Well, because they're going to compare you to, some, pro lifter. Who,
yeah, exactly.
Which they don't even know the entire story on that guy either. So, you don't know what he's done to get there as well.
On the Rogan show, when they were talking about the athletes, and he's like, well, I'm not saying you can't do it on a vegan diet. What I'm saying is it's more, to optimize athletic. They love to use, optimize or put or, whatever to optimize performance. You need to eat animals. It's like, there you go. It's like, it's just, he's bought into that notion because it just kind of resonates with what he prefers to eat.
But, even on that note, I think a lot of times there's also that people buy into the notion that when they look at certain animals and how they perform, they feel like, well, if I eat that animal or I eat what that animal eats, I'll be just like that animal. I'm a fucking lion. I'm like, okay, if you're a fucking lion, the next time you see roadkill, get out of your car and start tearing that meat up and have your lunch right then. There's your road trip meal right there if you're a fucking lion. Okay, if that's the case. So, like, no, you're not. I don't see you walking around with, a blood-covered mouth and tearing meat apart raw right then and there. It's not, the lion's not going there and having a barbecue, okay? He's not sitting there putting sauce and seasonings on it.
Even the way a gorilla eats, where I've seen gorillas in the wild, the gorillas eat a lot of leaves all day long. If we duplicated
shoots
exactly
and all that,
what they eat, you would never leave the toilet. So it's like I don't.
Trust me, that's another thing. Even in the plant-based world, like, oh, I'm a gorilla. Like, no, you're not. You're not eating like gorillas, and you're not trained like a gorilla.
These kind of arguments always make me laugh. It's like, well, look what animals do. It's like, look, I don't care about what animals are doing in the wild. I'm going to focus on what's good for me. It's like, let's just focus on what's good for us. There's plenty of research on what's good for us.
I don't think there's one animal sitting there looking at, there's not a gorilla like, hey, man, look at those humans. We need to do what they're doing. Check him out.
Exactly. They probably look at us and laugh.
Yeah, they're like, look at these idiots. Somebody, can you believe they came from us? Really? We're not related to those fools. They need to stop spreading that lie.
And our lack of athleticism is what they're lacking.
Exactly. Like, this dude came to do a pull-up, and I swing from trees all day.
Yeah,
like, come
guys
on.
Are running down the mountain, they fall, they just go into a somersault.
Just roll, tuck and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
And we fall and break a wrist and a hip and die. It's just like, they're probably like, really? That's shameful.
But we're the evolved ones, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, one thing I do like about PETA is how they put all that information out about factory farming, and I think that's something where people have to have that conversation with themselves. You have to watch that footage and realize that's what you're supporting, and then you have to ask yourself, are you okay with that?
Now, one of the things that
and if
really...
the answer is no, then why are you still doing it?
Exactly. What's always, I don't know, laughable to me is when someone posts something from a factory farm, there's always the one person that comes in because their family owns a farm. Like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. We don't do that. Like, yeah, you're probably one of the minute few that's not going there and hanging pigs upside down and cutting their throats. But, and my thing is there's no such thing as, an ethical way to kill someone. Okay. Trust me, if someone broke in this house right now and I had to shoot them in self-defense, I defended myself. And I killed someone. Was it ethical? No, I defended myself. And that's what it came down to. So my thing is, if it's not attacking you, then, you're far removed from the whole humane and ethical thing from that. You kill, you kill. You murder, you murder. That's what it is. Take it for what it is and don't try to dress it up. Like I said.
Or you're paying somebody, or you're paying somebody to do it for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of contracts. There's a lot of contracts out there, when you think about it. So, and when you put in that perspective, and, it's just funny, even I just put in the whole thing about I'm a vegetarian. I said, look, dude, I've been there, and you can't sell me on it because I've been there. And a lot of times, a lot of people that sit there and say like, oh, vegan won't work or vegetarian won't work, they've never done it before. Or they say like, oh, that doesn't work. Whereas I've been where you've been, as a meat eater. So I already know everything you're probably going to use to try to justify what you're doing because I've been there. I've done that. I have a t-shirt. Okay. I've done all those things that you're going to say. I've said all those things you're going to say. But the thing is, if you've never, most people, they're afraid of things they don't understand. And so they kind of, oh, that's just stupid. That's just stupid. And that's with just about anything in life. I always so what you have to do is kind of like, instead of going back on the attack when someone attacks you or whatever, first of all, I'm not the one that sits there and try to bash anyone all online. Like, oh, going to someone's Twitter feed or something like, why are you doing that? That's just, it's not going to create a healthy discussion right off the bat because they're going to get in attack mode. They're going to get defensive mode. And like, dude, why are you coming on here coming at me, dude? If you don't like it, just don't follow me or don't read my stuff. Because guess what? I'll say the same thing. If you come on and trying to attack something that I posted on my feed, like, you know what? There's an easy solution for this. You don't like it? Unfollow me. In fact, I'll help you out. I'll block you.
When people come on and they're not trying to engage in an intelligent conversation,
you get the block. You get blocked easily.
The last thing you want to do is start arguing with people on YouTube or
because they win every time.
Yeah, because there's always something better you could have been doing at that moment than arguing with some idiot you're never going to meet in any context.
Because I always ask myself, would this dude ever say this in your face? That's what you should ask yourself when someone's trying to come on and start a flaming war with you online. Would they say it in your face? And the thing is, like, nah. They wouldn't do that. Okay, move on. So just move on. And then you got to ask yourself the same thing when you're about to go at someone and go in hard. You got to ask yourself, would you say this in this person's face? Be honest with yourself. Could you say this? And if you couldn't, don't even dare start typing on that keyboard. Start typing the way you would if you were actually there in person with that person and you had.
I mean, one thing I've always followed is I never post anonymously, right? Like even when I don't post in any forums anymore because I don't care to waste time on it. But when I did,
I always use my name, man.
I always use my real name.
Yeah, on social media, everywhere I'm on there, there's my name. So therefore, it's me. So it's not gonna be, and it's gonna be my picture right there. You're gonna be able to identify me. It's not gonna be some cartoon face or something like that. So it's gonna be okay. The name, the face.
The best use of your time though is to work with people that actually want to hear what you have to say, right?
And they'll let you know.
Often I have people come to me who want to make the transition, and I don't do consulting anymore, so I always forward those people to Scott.
Yeah.
And those are people that are ready to make a change. They're easy to work with.
Exactly.
Scott, you don't have to try to convince these people to do what you're saying. They're coming to you going, okay, how do I make this work?
Exactly.
Right.
Or can you just tell me a little bit more? I'm trying to like make some changes, and can you just let me know if I'm on the right track?
Right.
And that's how it goes. I mean, it's just no different than training or anything else that we're known to do. It's just like people just kind of want to know, like, okay, I'm ready to make the change. I've been taking all the steps. I just want to make sure that I don't want to mess it up where I can give up. And that's always a good thing. When they're asking for help, that means that they really truly want to make that change. They're not just like dipping and dabbing in it. People that are dipping and dabbing and stuff, they're not going to reach out to you. They're pretty much just going to do it. And then if it fails, like, I tried that. It sucked. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work. So instead of just saying like, maybe I didn't approach it correctly, let me go to a professional. Trust me, if I'm trying to go change the oil on my car and I don't know anything about getting under a car and move stuff, I watch a YouTube video and I try it and it doesn't work and the freaking oil pan falls on my face, then I'm going to call my buddy who I know since we were in college, he's changed his own oil. I'm like, hey man, come over and show your boy how to do this correctly. And I said, because I want to save my money, but at the same time, I actually want to learn how to do this and, do it myself. So I'm going to go to someone that's more experienced with that instead of like, oh, nope, changing your oil yourself, that sucks. You got to go to an actual oil changing place now. No one can do that. I won't be that guy. So it doesn't make any sense, man.
Yeah. Anything you're working on, Scott? Anything you have in the pipeline?
Just actually just spending most of my time in the training center right now, man. I'm booked pretty solid with clients, and I've got a pretty decent thing going online, and
cool.
I just like I said, that swimmer that I'm working with right now, his Olympic trials, he's on his way to Canada right now for a regional event. Then when he gets back, he's 6 weeks out from their Olympic trials, and if everything goes to plan, he should qualify for the team, and we're just really focused on what we're doing in the gym right now, and I've got a pretty solid group of powerlifters I'm training right now. I got about 7 that I'm coaching, in addition to my few other athletes, and then all my general fitness clients. So it's just mostly mostly in the gym stuff. I did start I haven't been able to do as much writing because I've been really busy. So I decided to take a stab at doing some video blogging because it's much faster to sit down with the camera and do that. So I just do it on my YouTube page, and then I throw them over onto my blog, which is on my website. But I just call it I call it Strength and Health TV, and I just try to talk about topics that are relevant to both strength and health, and trying to merge those two together. And some things that I might find interesting. Then I do get some feedback from people, and I try to steer some of the episodes toward that. But I try to put out about 2 to 4 videos a month, and I'm not doing as much writing, but I'm trying to keep up with the writing too. It's just it's I'm one of those trainers that actually
you actually train people.
So I'm not as
you actually have a facility. You actually have a background in training people.
Yeah. So I've got people that I got people waiting for me to open the door. So I've got to actually be in here doing some work, so I can't be online arguing with people and challenging them to grappling matches.
Come on, man. That's the only way you're going to be an expert at what you do. What are you doing? You can't be wasting your time training people. Come on. No one ever does that anymore.
I'm trying to get people results.
That's so 80s. Come on, Scott.
There you go. But that's about it, man. I really don't have any projects or anything right now. Actually, Stick called me a couple days ago with something. I'm not going to say anything about it right now because it's not 100%, but I should find out this week if I'm going to be involved in it. But cool. If so, that'll be pretty cool. It's a nice little side thing that should be a lot of fun. But once it's confirmed, I'll definitely shoot you a message and let you know. But it's more something that he's working on that he invited me to be part of. So if it goes through, that should be awesome. But other than that, man, that's just training and eating and just living, man.
Sounds good, man.
There you go, man.
Hey, it's always great having you on the show. Great discussion. We'll definitely have you come back soon. And what's your website where people can go check you out?
The best one is just to go to my personal site because it's got links to everything else that I do, including my plant-based performance books and all that stuff that we're doing for to raise money for animal welfare and stuff. So they can just go to scottshetler.com. SCOTTSHETLER.com is my personal site, and all my social media, YouTube, my blog's on there and all that stuff. So they'll find, whatever somebody's interested in, they'll find it there and be able to, redirect to whatever it is they're looking for. So
sounds good. And are you doing consulting? You taking on any new clients?
Yeah. I'm still, I'm doing, I've got a few more slots for in person, and I definitely have some room for the online consulting. So basically what I'm doing on the online thing, I help people with either program design or building a plant-based, people that are interested in going plant-based, I'll help them, transition to a plant-based program. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not, going to help them with anything medically or anything like that. I'm not, doing contest prep. If people just want to learn how to incorporate, plant-based foods into the, if they've, like I did, making that switch, and just help them basically through my experience and the things that I've learned, from people like Dr. Davis and Dr. Greger and Furman and stuff. So that's basically all it is. I do those consultations, and then I do program design with people. So
sounds great, man. Awesome stuff. Well, hey, great talking to you.
Yeah, you guys too, man. It's always a good time. Enjoyed it. I've been keeping up with all your episodes. The guests are awesome. The content's always awesome, and you guys are doing a great job. So definitely keep it up, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it, man. You have a good one.
Take care, bro.
Take care, everyone. Take care. Bye. All right, folks, and you know what you can do? You can use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off. Get some Restore-Zyme. Get rid of those aches and pains so you can get more productive workouts. Get on the testosterone booster. Take 1 or 2 caps an hour before training. Get ready for some PRs. And look out for the new Adrenal Energy product.
Well, obviously the dogs are very excited about it. So make sure you hop on both websites, MikeMarler.com, NewWarriorTraining.com. Use that coupon code LLA. Get 10% off of everything that we have at both of our websites. Also, head over to Patreon.com/LLA Podcast. Become a monthly supporter of the show. And go into that little box, drop in that number 5 or put a 0 behind that 1, $5, $10. Or if you want to go with more, hey, we're good with that too. And last but not least, be sure to head over to whatever form of website that you use to listen to the podcast, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher, and go over there, leave a review, rate us, and also share the episode with your folks over on social media. Let the world know what's going on over here on the Live Life Aggressively show. All right, so hey, that's going to wrap it up for us this week, folks. So we'll catch each and every one of you on the next episode. All right, take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.